Imagine living in one of the wealthiest countries in Europe, one with a robust economy, high living standards, and a proud history of prosperity. But despite all of this, the dream of owning a home is slipping further and further out of reach. For many Dutch citizens today, that's the harsh reality. With housing prices soaring, owning a home in the Netherlands is becoming increasingly difficult, even becoming impossible for much of its population. In 2020, the average house cost €330,000. Just 4 years later, the average home now costs around €450,000, more than 30% increase. This is especially startling when compared with the nation's average income of less than €45,000 per year. Over the past few years, populous cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague have seen housing prices skyrocket by over 80%. These are neighbourhoods in high demand, with limited housing supply. The Dutch government has struggled to accommodate the growing number of immigrants, with many finding it increasingly difficult to secure affordable housing. How did a country known for its prosperity, social benefits, and strong economy get into this dire situation? Today, we're diving deep into the Dutch housing crisis, its causes, its impacts, and what might come next. The Netherlands is often regarded as one of the most successful and stable economies in the world. With a GDP that surpassed €1 trillion in 2023, it ranks as the 17th largest economy globally, and the 5th largest in the Eurozone. It's a country known for its open market economy, extensive trade, and a strong export sector. The Dutch economy has long been a model of fiscal prudence, boasting high levels of GDP per capita, income, and economic growth. For years, the Netherlands has been the envy of its European neighbours. In 2023, the country's GDP per capita reached an impressive $69,335,000, which was higher than that of Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, the largest economies in the European Union. For decades, Dutch citizens have enjoyed a relatively high standard of living, with low unemployment and strong welfare benefits. But despite this strong economic performance, there's a growing problem. The country's housing market is becoming increasingly inaccessible, and many Dutch citizens are finding it harder to live comfortably. Housing prices are climbing at an unsustainable pace, and the gap between income levels and housing costs is widening rapidly. Just 3 years ago, in 2022, the average price of a home in the Netherlands stood at around €330,000. Fast forward to 2024, and that number has risen over 30%, with average home prices sitting at around €450,000. This rapid increase in housing prices has created an unprecedented affordability crisis, especially considering that the average annual income in the Netherlands is still just under €45,000. How exactly did this happen? To put it simply, housing prices have risen far faster than wages. Over the past few years, populous cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague have seen housing prices skyrocket by over 80%. These are neighbourhoods in high demand, with limited housing supply, and the prices are climbing at rates that make it nearly impossible for average Dutch families to afford a home. For the average citizen, owning a home in the Netherlands is becoming an increasingly distant dream. To buy a medium-priced home in 2024, you would want to earn at least €80,000 annually, which is around double the average Dutch salary. In the most sought-after cities like Amsterdam, the situation is even more dire. In fact, according to real estate consultancy firm Dialect, buying a home in Amsterdam would require a salary that is 15.1 times the average annual income. This makes Amsterdam the least affordable city throughout all of Europe for buying a standardised home. And it's not just those hoping to buy a home who are feeling the pressure. Renters are also struggling with skyrocketing rental prices. In Amsterdam, for example, a one-bedroom apartment now costs around €1,500 per month, while renting a room in a shared house can cost you close to €1,000. This means that for the average person, over 40% of their monthly income is going just to keep a roof over their head. To make matters worse, there's a critical shortage of affordable housing, especially in the public housing sector. Currently, there's a waiting list of around 7 years for social housing, and in cities like Amsterdam, the waiting period can stretch up to 20 years. This situation is unsustainable and is putting enormous pressure on Dutch society. One of the key factors driving up house prices in the Netherlands is a severe housing shortage. According to research by ABF Research, the country was short 401,000 homes in 2024, which is a slight increase from the previous year's deficit of 390,000 homes. This shortage is especially acute in major urban areas where demand for housing is highest. This supply-demand imbalance has created a perfect storm. The growing population and increasing immigration have put even more strain on an already stretched housing market. While the Netherlands' population growth has slowed due to low birth rates, immigration has more than compensated for the decline in birth rates. In 2020, the country welcomed more than 220,000 immigrants, and then just 2 years later, that number nearly doubled to 403,000. This influx of newcomers, while beneficial for the labour force and overall economy, puts immense pressure on the already struggling housing market. The Dutch government has struggled to accommodate the growing number of immigrants, with many finding it increasingly difficult to secure affordable housing. This issue is particularly pronounced in major cities, where competition for housing is fierce. Despite the strain on the housing market, immigrants are seen by some as contributing to the country's economic growth by filling labour shortages, especially in key sectors like technology, healthcare, and logistics. However, the influx has also become a lightning rod for political debates and social tensions. The surge in immigration, combined with rising cost of living and housing, has fueled a growing sense of frustration among Dutch citizens. Over the past few years, there's been a noticeable rise in anti-immigrant sentiment, and this has manifested in the Dutch political landscape. In November 2023, the far-right Party for Freedom, known as PVV, led by Geert Wilders, gained significant attention in the national elections, securing a notable increase in its parliamentary seats. While the PVV did not win outright, its strong performance reflected growing voter concerns over issues like housing, immigration, and perceived cultural changes. Wilders has long been critical of both immigration and the European Union, and his party's platform resonated with voters frustrated by the housing crisis and rising cost of living. Following the election, the Dutch government, now led by a coalition that includes Wilders' party, began implementing policies aimed at curbing immigration and tightening asylum processes. These measures, which include stricter border controls and tougher immigration laws, reflect a shift toward more nationalist policies. However, while these actions may address some voter concerns, they do little to resolve the underlying causes of the housing crisis, such as the supply-demand imbalance and the financialization of real estate. The Netherlands wasn't always facing such dire housing issues. In fact, the country enjoyed a period of rapid economic growth in the 1990s and early 2000s, during which it became one of Europe's most successful economies. The country's open market policies, strong industrial base, and global trade connections allowed it to thrive. During this period, the Netherlands attracted multinational companies and became a hub for finance, technology, and logistics. Between 1990 and 2000, the Dutch economy grew at an average rate of 3.3%, well above the European average. Even after the global financial crisis of 2008, the Dutch economy rebounded quickly, and the country continued to grow, albeit at a slower pace. In the years following the 2008 financial crash, the Dutch government implemented effective recovery strategies, including fiscal stimulus packages and economic reforms. By 2020, the Netherlands had solidified its position as one of Europe's wealthiest countries. So, if the Dutch economy has been so strong, why is there a housing crisis now? Much of the answer lies in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like many other countries, the Netherlands faced massive economic disruptions during the pandemic, followed by a period of rapid inflation in the years that followed. Energy and food prices surged due to supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic. The war in Ukraine only worsened the situation, driving up energy costs and creating uncertainty in global markets. In 2022, inflation in the Netherlands hit a staggering 10%, driven largely by skyrocketing energy and food prices. As a result of these economic shocks, housing prices began to rise sharply, especially in the most desirable urban areas. Between 2021 and 2022, the Netherlands saw a surge in housing prices, with some areas experiencing price hikes of up to around 19% year on year. This surge came on top of already high prices, making it even harder for people to enter the housing market. Another factor that has exacerbated the housing crisis is the financialization of the housing market. Since the early 2010s, large investment funds and pension firms have increasingly viewed real estate as a high-yield commodity, pouring billions of euros into buying up houses stocks across the Netherlands. These entities have turned housing into a financial asset to be traded for profit, rather than a basic human need. As these investment funds buy up homes, they raise prices, displacing local residents and pushing them further out of the housing market. The result is a real estate market that benefits investors at the expense of everyday Dutch citizens. So, what's the way forward for the Netherlands? Can the government tackle the housing crisis before it leads to more social unrest? While there's no easy solution, the Dutch government has promised to build more homes, streamline the construction process, and address the root causes of rising prices. However, with rising immigration pressures, financialization, and political instability, the road to recovery looks uncertain. The Dutch government has committed to building 900,000 new homes by 2030. But given the political and economic challenges, it's hard to say if this target will be met. Without stronger regulation of the housing market and a focus on affordability, the Netherlands risks seeing even more inequality and social division in the years ahead. The Dutch housing crisis isn't just a problem for the Netherlands, it's a microcosm of a wider Western issue, where cities across the Western world are grappling with rising prices, housing shortages, and immigration pressures. What happens in the Netherlands could set a precedent for how other nations manage similar challenges. What do you think? Can the Dutch government really solve its housing crisis? Or are they just papering over the cracks with temporary solutions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into global issues and market trends.